While speaking with ESPN's Unsportsmanlike, Cody Rhodes shared an interaction involving WWE main roster newcomer Ethan Paige during WWE's ongoing European tour, and although the undisputed WWE champion told the story with a laugh, he admitted the exchange left him surprisingly offended. Cody Rhodes, the face of the company, the man carrying the title into Italy, felt disrespected by his own friend. So here's the full story of what exactly went down between Cody Rhodes and Ethan Paige on tour. WWE champion Cody Rhodes was interviewed by ESPN on Unsportsmanlike to promote his match against Gunther at Clash in Italy. And like most of his appearances on that show, he was relaxed, talkative, and comfortable. He was in the middle of hyping up the European crowd, the international atmosphere, the tour life. And then he stopped mid-conversation and pivoted to a story that no one saw coming. While talking about Joe Hendry being a rock star on the Red brand, he suddenly cut in, "You know what I don't like is when people go to Raw, they get in the Raw bubble." The other day, Ethan Paige, who was doing great on Raw, he's on the tour. It's his first tour ever, so he's a rookie basically, even though he's a little older than most rookies. I asked him, "Are you on the tour?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm on the tour. Are you?" Like, I'm the WWE champion. What a weird... I replied, "I might be." Just like, do you not look at anything? That one exchange, that is what broke the internet. The WWE champion, the man defending the undisputed title in Turin, Italy in days, was asked by his friend whether he was even going to be on the tour. And instead of brushing it off, Rhodes filed it away, took it to ESPN, and put Ethan Paige on blast in front of a national audience. According to Rhodes, the interaction started innocently enough backstage before quickly turning into what felt like an all-ego moment. Rhodes continued, "I'm the WWE champion. Like, what a weird..." I replied, "I might be. Do you not look at anything? Am I on the show?" I was offended. Rhodes framed the situation as playful banter rather than genuine tension, noting that Paige is still adjusting to WWE's demanding touring schedule. After arriving on the main roster following WrestleMania 42, clips of the moment spread fast. The reaction from fans online was immediate. "This is too funny." Posts were flying across X within hours of the interview airing. Some people were laughing. Some people were calling it a diss. Some people were saying seeds were being planted for a feud. And some people, a minority, but they were there, were saying Rhodes was being big-headed. But whatever the read was, the clip was moving. Tens of thousands of views. The story was everywhere. And it was all tied to one question from Ethan Paige. That took about 5 seconds to say, "Yeah, I'm on the tour. Are you?" That is the moment. That is what triggered it all. And to understand why this moment even exists, why it hit the way it did, why it landed as both hilarious and oddly pointed, you have to understand exactly who these two people are, where they come from, and why that specific question, from that specific person, meant more than it probably should have. The reason this story has any texture at all is because Ethan Paige is not some random new face who wandered into a backstage hallway and accidentally insulted the champion. He and Cody Rhodes go back, far back, back before the big stages, the title belts, the premium live events, back to when both of them were building their names on the Canadian independent circuit, grinding through small venues for small crowds. Cody Rhodes and Ethan Paige have been real-life friends for several years. They support each other, are in frequent communication, and have worked together in several promotions. Paige and Rhodes were known as two stars in A1 wrestling. The duo captured the A1 Tag Team Championship and held onto the titles for 217 days. They lost them to the Western Med Connection. So this is not a stranger. This is a tag team partner, a guy Rhodes won titles with, a guy he has been in frequent communication with for years. And when Rhodes left WWE in 2016 and carved out a legendary independent career, Paige was in that world with him. When Rhodes helped build AEW from the ground up, Paige eventually followed him there too. It's no secret that Ethan Paige and Cody Rhodes have been close friends behind the scenes, and the American Nightmare had a part to play in Paige's debut in AEW. Paige also briefly confirmed that WWE had reached out to him at some stage. However, he felt like it wasn't the right time, as he had his mind made up about going to AEW. It was a good conversation. It just wasn't the right timing at the time. I honestly had my eyes set on AEW at the time. So Paige had chances to go to WWE earlier, and passed on them. He went to AEW instead, spent his time there building his profile, working with Scorpio Sky in Men of the Year, running programs against Darby Allin, Cody Rhodes, Matt Hardy, and more. He was a solid name, a reliable presence, someone the company used regularly. But by the time he eventually made his way to WWE, Rhodes had already completed his journey. Left AEW, returned to WWE, won the Royal Rumble twice, and finally finished his story by dethroning Roman Reigns to become undisputed WWE champion. When Paige arrived in NXT in 2024, Rhodes was already at the summit. It only took Paige a matter of weeks before he captured the NXT championship. His run included an 86-day reign as NXT champion and a record-setting 273-day stint as NXT North American champion. That is a genuinely impressive NXT run. 2 titles, near-record reign as North American champion, and through all of it, Rhodes was quietly watching from the main roster, publicly championing his friend's name every chance he got. Rhodes once said, "Oba's phenomenal, Trick's phenomenal, Ethan Page, who I love. That might be one of my few friends in the business, Ethan Page." And then came WrestleMania 42, the annual roster reset. The Raw after Mania. The night new stars get handed their tickets to the main event scene. WWE called up 7 NXT stars to its main roster, following WrestleMania 42, with Ethan Page, Sol Ruca, and Joe Hendry headed to Raw, and Fatal Influence. Ricky Saints and Blake Monroe headed to SmackDown. On the Raw after WrestleMania 42, Ethan Page made his debut on Monday Night Raw. After a 2-year run in WWE NXT, Page didn't waste time settling in. Instead, he immediately positioned himself in the title picture. Page's tenure with WWE has been a positive one. A new update from WrestleVotes indicates Page is extremely respectful and detail-oriented behind the scenes of WWE. That attention to detail is something that many feel has translated onto television. Throughout his time in NXT, AAA, and Raw, the report confirms that Page has positioned himself well on the main roster. So when the European tour came around, Ethan Page was on it. His first ever major international WWE tour. A 20-year veteran, 2-time NXT champion, now a Raw main roster star, and fully credentialed to be in that locker room. And yet, in the middle of that tour, he somehow found himself in a conversation with the undisputed WWE champion, where he genuinely did not know whether that champion was going to be part of the same tour. And that right there is the thing Cody Rhodes could not get over. To fully appreciate why Rhodes responded the way he did, why he took this story to ESPN, why he replayed the conversation in his head, enough to bring it up on national radio, you need to understand the phenomenon he actually put a name to. He called it the Raw Bubble. While talking about Joe Hendry, he suddenly cut in with the story. You know what I don't like is when people go to Raw, they get in the Raw bubble. This is not a fictional concept. This is a known dynamic in pro wrestling, and specifically in WWE, where the brand split between Raw and SmackDown creates invisible walls, not just in creative direction but in everyday thinking. You're on your brand. You know your show. You know your matches, your angles, your travel schedule, but you stop paying attention to what is happening across the aisle. Who is on the SmackDown roster? Which champions are doing what? Which stars are being featured on which events? And on tour, that tunnel vision becomes even more pronounced. You are jet-lagged. You are moving from city to city. You are focused on your own booking, your own segment, your own spot on the card. For someone newly arrived on the main roster and navigating international touring for the first time, the entire experience is already overwhelming. Ethan Page is on the tour. It's his first tour. He's basically a rookie, Rhodes explained. Rhodes made a point of noting that Page is not young in the traditional sense. This comes after a near 2-year stint down in NXT for Page, a 36-year-old, 20-year veteran of the industry who slowly but surely worked his way up to the big time. He is experienced, but experience in indie wrestling, experience in AEW, even experience in NXT, none of that fully prepares you for the rhythm and scale of a WWE European tour. The production, the logistics, the sheer volume of talent on the road, it is a different world. And so in Rhodes' framing, Paige asking whether the WWE champion was on the tour is not a malicious act. It is not a power play. It is the natural result of someone who got absorbed into the Raw bubble, focused on his own lane, his own brand, his show, and temporarily lost sight of the bigger picture. He stopped looking at the full card. He stopped tracking what the SmackDown champion was doing. He went inward, the way new main roster stars often do. But here is what makes Rhodes' reaction so revealing. He did not just brush it off, he was actually offended. Not in an angry way, but in a way that said something about where his head is, and where his standards are. Just like, "Do you not look at anything?" That line is the real message. Not "how dare you," but "how are you not paying attention?" Rhodes' position as the top champion, as a former EVP of AEW, as someone who has spent years thinking about the entire wrestling business, rather than just his own spot in it, is that everyone in that locker room should be watching the full picture. They should know what is happening on the other brand. They should know who the champion is and where they are booked. That is just being a professional. That is just knowing your industry, speaking on ESPN unsportsmanlike. Cody Rhodes noted that he could see Clash sneaking up to join WWE's Big Four: Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. A man thinking that carefully about the trajectory of individual events is obviously going to notice when someone in the same locker room is not tracking whether the champion is on the tour. The Raw bubble critique carries weight specifically because of who Rhodes is. He is someone who has always operated with an eye on the entire business. When he was in AEW as an executive vice president, Rhodes helped manage the company through its television launch in October of 2019, a global pandemic that would force wrestling shows to take place without fans, and an expansion which included a second TV show and a reality series starring him and his wife Brandy. That is not the mindset of someone who only knows his own schedule. So when a close friend, a guy who has been in this business for 20 years, asks whether the champion is going to be on the same tour as him, Rhodes' reaction is genuine. Not rage, not malice, just genuine bewilderment that someone he respects could be operating with that kind of blind spot. The Raw bubble is real. Rhodes named it, and he used Ethan Paige, his friend, as the case study. The timing of this story is not accidental. WWE champion. Cody Rhodes was interviewed by ESPN on Unsportsmanlike to promote his match against Gunther at Clash in Italy, and they covered a range of topics. He was in the middle of a media blitz. He was everywhere. ESPN radio, Get Up, First Take. He was doing the work of a champion, generating attention, keeping the momentum going in the lead-up to one of the biggest premium live events of the year. The event was set to take place on Sunday, May 31, 2026, at the Analpi Arena in Turin, Italy, and it marked WWE's first ever PPV and live streaming event held in Italy. On February 18, 2026, WWE Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque confirmed the event as Clash in Italy, and it would be held on Sunday, May 31, 2026, in the Analpi Arena in Turin. This is historic territory. WWE had never done a major premium live event in Italy before. Previous Clash events had been held in Paris in 2025, Glasgow in 2024, and Cardiff in 2022, with this becoming a signature event for the European market, and Cody Rhodes is headlining it. A title showdown between defending champion Cody Rhodes and the ring general Gunther will be the first match on this Sunday's premium live event in Turin, Italy. Gunther made a strong statement that he was coming for the gold when he attacked Rhodes on the May 1 episode of SmackDown. Gunther followed this up by calling in a favor from Paul Heyman, who established a contract for a title match against Rhodes. Gunther had spent the past year building one of the most credible resumes in recent WWE history. He retired John Cena, Goldberg, and AJ Styles, and backed it up with a dominant win over Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 42. That is the opponent Rhodes is walking into. That is the pressure he is operating under. And yet, in the middle of all of that, he found time to laugh about Ethan Paige. He found time to tell a story about a backstage hallway conversation that had nothing to do with the championship match. He turned a mundane 5-second exchange into a viral moment that cut through all the noise, and that is the mark of a top-tier promo. Rhodes knows the art of content. He knows what makes people talk. And he knows that a funny, relatable story about backstage life, about the day-to-day reality of being a locker room, full of human beings with blind spots and brand bubbles, is sometimes more compelling than any hype promo about your opponent. Commenting on the friendly competition between European crowds, Rhodes said, "I think right now one of the things we're seeing with the international crowds, Nick Khan has been so good at identifying this in the different markets. They're almost competing with each other in a fun way. In a sense of, Lyon, France is the loudest crowd ever in WWE history. We're going to be even louder." This is a man who is completely dialed in. He is thinking about crowd atmosphere. He is thinking about market growth. He is thinking about his match with Gunther. And he is also thinking about what his new friend on Raw said to him in a hallway. All at the same time, he filed the Ethan Page exchange away, recognized its comedic value, and deployed it on the biggest sports media platform in America to generate warmth, relatability, and viral content all in one hit. The Ethan Page story was not a detour from the Clash in Italy promotion. It was part of it. The human moments, the behind-the-scenes glimpses, the locker room humor, the unexpected vulnerabilities, those are the things that make people feel connected to a star. And Rhodes, more than almost anyone in wrestling right now, understands how to build that connection. When the clip of Rhodes telling the story dropped on social media, the wrestling internet did what the wrestling internet always does. It reacted, loudly, quickly, and in every direction at once. The dominant tone was laughter. Plain and simple. Most people found it hilarious. The image of Ethan Page, who has been in professional wrestling for 20 years, who is literally friends with the WWE champion, who won a tag team title alongside the man he was now asking about. Asking, "Are you on the tour?" Sent people into fits. Comments flooded in. The posts racked up thousands of likes and reposts within hours. The fans who knew their history, who knew about Alpha One Wrestling, the tag team runs, the AEW days, found it even funnier. Because the absurdity only compounds when you understand the relationship. This is not a stranger. This is a guy who was in Rhodes' corner before either of them had a televised match. The idea that Paige, of all people, did not check whether Rhodes was on the same international tour as him. It has layers. A vocal section of the internet quickly pivoted from laughter to speculation. The phrase "planting seeds" started appearing in comment sections. People began suggesting that WWE was quietly setting up a Rhodes versus Paige storyline. That this was too perfect, too convenient, too well positioned in the lead-up to a major event to be entirely accidental. The friendship history, the good-natured ribbing, the national platform. Fans have seen WWE plant seeds like this before. And the suggestion that Rhodes would call out his friend on ESPN and not have something in the works behind the scenes was, to some, hard to believe. A minority of voices took a different angle entirely. Some called Rhodes out for sounding, in their words, big-headed. The critique was not furious, not particularly organized, but it was there. Why is the champion so bothered by this? Why turn a harmless question into a public story? Is this the behavior of a guy who is comfortable at the top, or someone who needs the validation of having people know he is there? It is worth sitting with that critique for a second, not because it is definitive, but because it points to something real about how top-tier stars navigate their position. Rhodes has fought for a long time to get to where he is. The finishing the story arc, the 2 WrestleMania main events, the title win over Roman Reigns. Every part of that journey was built on the idea that Rhodes had something to prove, that he was overlooked, that people underestimated him. And so when a friend accidentally treats him like just another guy on the roster, the reaction, even joking, carries a trace of that old wound. While many would say that Paige received his main roster call-up on the Raw after WrestleMania, Paige has explained why he personally hates those terms. Speaking on Raw Recap, Paige likened the brand he was performing on to playing for a sports team and believes he has simply been traded to Raw as opposed to called up. That is important context. Paige does not see himself as a rookie. He never has. He has been professional wrestling for 2 decades. He founded his own promotion. In addition to being a professional wrestler, Paige has operated his own promotion since 2010. He is the founder of Alpha One Wrestling. He started the company himself so that his family could see him wrestle in nicer venues. He is not some kid fresh out of developmental. He is a fully formed veteran who happens to be on his first WWE International Tour, and that is ultimately the most honest reading of the exchange. Two veterans, operating at very different altitudes of the same company, briefly experiencing a collision of their realities. Paige is in a new environment, new brand, new schedule, new scale, and he defaulted to the bubble of his world. Rhodes is operating at the very top. Every event he is on is the biggest event, and he briefly forgot what it feels like to not automatically know that. The full verdict on this story is that it is not actually a snap, and it is not actually a disrespect. It is a funny, revealing, completely human moment between two friends, one of whom happens to be the face of the biggest pro wrestling company on the planet, and one of whom is still finding his footing on that stage. And the fact that Rhodes told it with a laugh, that he prefaced it by noting Paige is doing great on Raw, that he called it a product of the Raw bubble, rather than a character flaw. All of that tells you this story ends exactly where it began, with two friends, on the same tour, headed into the same arena, carrying the same company forward together. The only difference now is that one of them has a viral moment to laugh about, and the other has a very good reason to check the SmackDown card before he asks anyone else what their schedule looks like. Cody Rhodes says Ethan Page offended him during WWE's European tour. Cody Rhodes felt offended by WWE main roster newcomers' question. Cody Rhodes says WWE Clash Premium Live events are sneaking up on WWE's Big Four. Cody Rhodes thinks WWE Clash has become Big Four PLE. Undisputed WWE champion Cody Rhodes on ESPN unsportsmanlike. Elite Rockers X post on the Ethan Page exchange. Ethan Page's age, height, relationship status, and more. Wrestlers Cody Rhodes gets along with. Ethan Page says he was in contact with WWE when Cody Rhodes brought him to AEW. Ricky Saints reveals one reason why he dislikes Cody Rhodes' close friend Ethan Page. Cody Rhodes reconnects with old friends in an Elite NXT segment. Ethan Page called up to WWE. Main roster on Raw. WWE calls up 8 NXT stars to Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania 42. Major NXT name wins WWE Raw in-ring debut after call-up. WWE's Ethan Page called up to Monday Night Raw. Update on Ethan Page's backstage status on the main roster. WWE's Ethan Page explains why he hates the terms NXT call-up and main roster. Undisputed WWE champion Cody Rhodes vs. Gunther. Cody Rhodes vs. Gunther to open WWE Clash in Italy. Clash in Italy. 4 reasons why Gunther is challenging Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE Championship at Clash in Italy 2026. Why Cody Rhodes' appearance at WWE Clash in Italy 2026 matters. Cody Rhodes vs. Gunther. Why the Clash in Italy main event is the perfect test for the new era. All matches announced for WWE Clash in Italy so far. WWE Clash in Italy 2026. Cody Rhodes' entire pro wrestling journey explained. Cody Rhodes, Raw after WrestleMania main roster call-ups. WWE Raw after WrestleMania 42. Ethan Page, Joe Hendry and Sol Ruca called up. Cody Rhodes takes a subtle dig ahead of real-life friends WWE SmackDown debut. Cody Rhodes' former partner reacts to his undisputed WWE Universal title win at WrestleMania XL.